Today, I'm joined by Jackie Gowran. Jackie is business coach and mentor who blends practical strategy with soul-led wisdom. Through her business, aptly named Business Weaving, Jackie supports her clients to reconnect to their vision and bring more heart into their business. We spoke beforehand, and that was an extremely abridged version of what Jackie actually does. But we're going to get into all of that. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me. Let me just quickly flag we've had a little bit of issue with the audio, so we're just going to do our best and see how we go. Um, Welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Nadine.
I'm looking forward to this. I'd sent you a list of all of the things we could talk about, and you were like, oh, okay. That might take a while. So we probably won't get to all of them, but I have no doubt that this is going to be a very cool conversation. So thanks for joining me.
Well, see what unfolds.
Yes, let's see. Okay, so let's kick off by you giving us a little bit more of detail about who you are, what you do, and yeah, then we'll go from there.
Okay,
No.
thank you, Nick. Um, so a little more detail. So yes, all of what you said. My primary focus really is very much about supporting and empowering others to really be themselves, be their authentic, true selves in their life and in their business. But I use the business as my tool because what I've really learned over the years is our business, we can't hide in our business. Our behaviors and our patterns show up right there in front of us. So it is a beautiful and perfect mirror. And it's a little bit, we can be a little bit more objective about it. So what I do really in my work is we use the business and what is happening in the business and how people are feeling in the business and what where they're getting fulfillment, where they're getting drained, all of those things, what's working, what's not working, where their patterns of behavior and communication is showing up. We utilize that really as a mirror. And by resolving some of the issues that show up, of course, it seeps into their lives. It changes everything. So that's at the core of my work. Um, how did I end up here? How did I arrive at this juncture? God knows, really, is the truth. I look back at it and I go, wow. But what I do know, and it's what I also see with my clients all the time, is all the threads of my life have led me to here. And that's part of the whole purpose and point of my business, my brand name being Business Weaving. It's the weaving together of all the threads of our lives and our business. And in an ideal world, making a beautiful tapestry. And of course, accepting that even in that beautiful tapestry, there may be little kinks or there may be mistakes. And they're okay too. They're part of the richness, they're part of the unfolding. So, in terms of me, um, I'll try and keep this short, which is tricky for me. I'm kind of like a little bit of a long story girl, but I will do my best. So my own business journey started in 1989, officially. So I was a handbag designer and maker, and my ex-husband and I had learned our stock and trade in London, in Cordwainers College, Athletic College, which was quite extraordinary to us coming from Ireland and living in London. It was like, wow. Um, and um, and so we had been working in London for a few years, and we wanted to return to Ireland, and we knew we wanted to return, but we didn't have enough finance and money to return. And in the 80s in Ireland, at that time, it was quite the economy was very in a very low point. It was quite a bleak time. So we literally had our families going, "Don't come back." I'm sure they loved us. I know they loved us, but that was the message. And so our solution was to learn a trade, which was actually our motivation in going to college. So we gave up work and went to college and worked part time. Um, and then did some of the markets in London. Basically, our flat moved from a flat slash apartment. Fancy word is apartment. Irish word, it was always a flat.
Mm.
Our apartment had become a workshop by the time we left London. And then we moved back and we set up. Um, I'll kind of fast forward through that quite quickly, but I mean, essentially, everything changed once we set up because whatever notion we had about, a small workshop attached to a beautiful little home with the roses around the door frame, and that kind of left the building quite quickly because I mean, even off the bat, finding somewhere to live was quite tricky. But then, of course, we did make the choice to actually go and live in the very far west corner. So we were living in Dingle, and at that time in the late 80s, trying to get leather raw materials to Dingle from Europe was another challenge. So the challenges multiplied, but it all led to us really, in order for it to be effective and work, we needed to move into a production scenario as opposed to this small, simple, straightforward business that we had a notion that we were doing. And it was the process of that really where the growth happened. And I mean growth in terms of learning about business. We had to learn about business from the get go. We had to learn where are our customers, who are they, and how to reach them because we were not anywhere near them. Um, and this was before the times of the internet. So it was during that time that I really learned about business. And by the time I left that business in 2000, we had we had a lot of really positive, amazing things that happened, including our leather goods being in Harrods, no less.
Wow.
But written under our brand, they were under Penhaligon's brand, which is a perfumers in London making their leather goods. But it was still a good kudos to sort of say, ooh, our leather goods are in Harrods. Um, so that was always a bit of fun. We had a shop. We were, things were going really well on so many levels. We had 9 people employed, but of course it had come with a huge bag of stress and learning the ropes and learning what was what. Now, for me personally, one of the things that happened is in the first few years of business, I moved away from the making side and really moved into developing the brand, running the business, developing the shop, managing people, the suppliers. So I was very much the kind of like the creative director in that was the role that I took on. And my ex-husband very much went down the line of the production. And that was the correct way because that was his strength. For me to design a bag, no bother. Make 20 bags, woof. That was always tricky for me. I did it times. So when I left that business, that was really a juncture for me of very major transition. It was like, who am I now? And that question has always been a huge part of my work. And that comes with the people that I'm working with. They're usually in transition of some shape or form. Whether that is transition is wanting to up level their business, whether that is a significant challenge that has happened in their life, which means that they're going in a different direction, and anything and everything in between. So what happened was over a period of a number of years, I basically transitioned over to coaching and training, but it wasn't something that happened instantly. It was probably 6, 7 years of a period of me doing facilitation training, learning about stress management, because my curiosity was what happened there? Because a lot of really good, positive things had happened, but a lot of things had happened that weren't good and positive. And I'm always wanting to understand what happened. Now, of course, with human design, I realize, oh, my gate 64 was always, very, very much into the fore, really being the kind of looking back. And so it was, I also had done a business degree during that time, part time and remotely, and I had two young children, was single parent. So I look now and I think, how did I manage all those pieces, including doing merchandising and marketing and anything that would make money? But it was then at the end of that phase that I really went into doing business coaching officially, um, in a full time way. And that wasn't the birthing of business weaving. But I did
Okay.
warn
You keep going. I just hope I can think of some questions now.
you. So what happened then, um, over after a few years, I then partnered with another woman, and she and I developed a training company, Business IQ, Sheila Ann and I, because I was doing a lot of work for the local enterprise office, which is a government agency. So I would have been doing start your own business training, women in business, various trainings, branding, etc. So Sheila Ann was very much the money side. I was very much the management, the person, and the marketing side. And so we partnered, and that worked really well for a number of years, and again very successful. We we're getting a lot of contracts. We tender for contracts. But what happened with me was again, I learned that piece around developing, designing the programs really was very much my thing. Developing the brand was very much my thing. We wrote and developed and created manuals and workbooks to go with the programs. But actually the delivery of endless programs was where I started to get a little bit like, whoa, not sure about this. And quite frankly, it was burning me out. And it was burning me out not because I didn't love it, because actually that was the conundrum. I did love it. But I could see, would say, for example, start your own business programs, which we were running a lot of those. They're quite agenda driven. It's like, do this, do that, do the other. And whereas I'm not wired like that. I it's good to have the framework of these are the things that you need to do. But then of course you need to allow space for each person's uniqueness and where they're challenged, where they get stuck, and where their strengths lie or otherwise. And I was very aware of that because I had done the whole facilitation, personal development, communication, stress management. Even I had done a lot of community work as well, somewhere along the line in the facilitation. So I'm very much a people person and very much about, so what's going on with you? So what I was doing was actually I was double jobbing. I was trying to deliver all of the framework and at the same time trying to move people along. And really there was constraints time wise. So I was wearing myself out and I was also getting dissatisfied, but I wasn't really fully understanding why, because on one level it was working, but the dissatisfaction was the key. And that again was my human design because I'm a generator, an emotional generator, and really it is all about frustration or satisfaction. So there was more for this frustration than satisfaction. So over a period of a couple of years, I was unpacking that, what's going on here. And I was upfront with Sheila Ann about what was happening. And so I was starting to realize more and more, it was like, no, this doesn't work for me. This is not, this is not fitting enough in for how I am. So we made a plan basically and we built the team. And so when we had a replacement people for me, I exited the company and then I set up business weaving. So during those few years of that transition, I was hatching a plan, and my plan was business weaving, which is a much more holistic approach. And it's really how I would describe myself now is I'm a value-driven, nervous system informed business coach. And that really finally have arrived in a place of like, oh, okay, this is how I do it. I couldn't do what I do now without everything that has led me to here. It is the broad spectrum of my expertise and experience and the challenges that have added to my wisdom and what I can deliver. So that is the long
That's
version.
it in a nutshell. It was a beautiful nutshell. There's there's a whole bunch of things that I could ask you about, and things were popping into my head here and there. But there's two things that popped out that I'm super interested in when it comes to your work and what you do. Like, obviously, it's a really different approach to someone helping a client with their business when you're talking about like their energetics, essentially. But the one thing that I've heard you talk about before, because we're actually both in a human design community together, and I've interviewed Kim Gould, we've spoken with her, so hopefully the listeners are kind of connecting a few dots. But you mentioned about nervous system, being nervous system informed, and I think this is really interesting. And we were in a group doing some stuff in the human design community, and I said that I don't really feel very comfortable posting stuff on social media. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel exposed. And you mentioned then that people will feel that from you. And you kind of mentioned, I think you mentioned then about that being about how our nervous system can impact how we behave, but also how we're received in our work and in our business. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little to that? Or a lot?
But let's see what happens. Oh, well, I suppose if I start with the nervous system
Mm,
piece, so I think in terms of where it fits with my work and why I was drawn to it, I think again going back to the threads, one of the things that I have noticed in my work is that the stress management piece, and that would have been really in sort of like late 1990s, early 2000s that I was really starting to get curious about this. And as I mentioned, I did do facilitation training, and it very much included specializing in stress management. So I already had a little baseline in nervous system work. We talked about fright, flight, all of those things, but it was baseline.
mm.
Um, but it imprinted on me, and it definitely informed my work. And I think it was very much part of, I was always about you and your business from the time I did those programs. There was a series of four that you kind of did consecutively. Um, and so that informed my work. And it was in probably, oh, I don't know, probably around 2019 or thereabouts. It might have been a bit before that. Then I did it's a long way of answering it, but I will get to your question. Nervous system. I did a trauma informed
Mm.
leadership program with Claire Rother. Anchored was the name of the program, and that really introduced me to the nervous system. How impactful our nervous system states are on how we show up at work, how we show up in our business, how we show up in life. I joined more dots there. And then last year, I actually did a 6 month program with Deb Dana, who is a very important person in the whole polyvagal nervous system world, because she's the person who translated Stephen Porges's work, which was much more academic, into it being much more layman. So, um, so the nervous system informed, it's been kind of like it's been a building process for me. But of course, then I'm able to now see where the rubber hits the road with my clients. And so when you were saying about kind of like how you were feeling about social media and what I was saying about the energetics, so I will say that that was a combination of human design
Mm.
because energetic blueprint and how we show up in the world or how we don't. And the nervous system, because so if I speak to the nervous system first, because what happens with our nervous system, it is wired between 0 and 7, and the 0 bit being literally when we're in utero. But actually, it's not that simple either, because there's generational
Mm.
imprint and epigenetics, which is before that, where there's been changes to DNA of our ancestors, and that comes down the line. And then the 0 to 7, it's not, we can kind of think, oh, that's our parents. It's not that simple either. It's our parents who have already been imprinted and conditioned by their parents, but it's also they're conditioned and imprinted by society. So it's a huge amount of societal conditioning, and whether that shows up in the schools, in quite often, if the church is at play, in my upbringing, very much, because I was brought up in Ireland, and Catholicism was massive conditioning. Um, so so really, it is the what I was talking to there, I believe, and I don't have any memory of it, is the truth, but I will, what I believe I would have been talking to is, of course, our conditioning imprints us. Human design and our design, we have our design, but if we're not working to our authentic and true design, there's a kind of a mismatch in our frequencies and
Mm.
our, and equally then with our nervous system, if the wiring into our nervous system, so going back to, finally, I will come to how you expressed it. When we go back to you sort of saying it feels a little exposed, it feels a little vulnerable, and it just makes me uncomfortable. So specifically in terms of your nervous system, you're having a response in your nervous system where you're tightening. It's like, oh God, I have to do this. Oh, I don't really want to do this. And but underneath that, what are the reasons? And it is because of the vulnerability. It is because of saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, which is very vulnerable. So understanding that that response is actually connected with an old story. Because when it comes to our nervous system, our wiring, and when I refer to wiring, I mean imprinting from our environment, primarily in our conditioning, has our nervous system responding in certain ways. And it's the state of our nervous system. So it's always state before story. So sympathetic state is usually where we need to do something, but we have a response where we're just our sympathetic vagus is activated, and we're feeling quite tense, and we might feel it in our belly, and we feel it in our gut a lot, because we have a lot of nerve endings, and a huge network of nerve endings in our gut, which is why we often feel anxiety there. We feel that tightening, and that's a nervous system response. That's a sympathetic response that is connected with an old story, that maybe when we were 4 or 5, we were asked to do something and we didn't feel ready, it kind of created anxiety in us. And so whenever we want to do something that we're not comfortable with, or we haven't found our voice, or whatever it is, we will have the same state show up. But we actually have attached a story to that state, multiple stories, but we don't realize that, because in our humanness, we're connecting with the story. So your story is that actually it makes me feel uncomfortable, it makes me feel vulnerable, it makes me feel exposed. But actually, before the story came the state where your nervous system was feeling tense, where your nervous system was giving you a response to alert you that there was discomfort. And so, how we change the state is resourcing the state so we can change the story. We can't change the story from the mind, because if we
Mm.
could, years ago, we need to change the story from the nervous system. Information, knowledge, awareness, resourcing, like, there's a process and recognition that we have stories and multiple stories. And then we can work on changing the narratives. And it is the combination of all of those things, along with our human design energetic blueprint of working in a correct way for our energy, that allows us to actually really embrace who we truly are and who we are becoming, and how we can clean up our frequencies. But of course, that's a lifelong process.
Mm.
But it is at the core of the work I'm doing with my clients. But they're not with me for a lifelong time. Really, what I'm giving them is a toolkit for them to become more aware and aware and aware, and where they're doing that cleanup operation on an ongoing basis themselves.
I'm really curious. I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit because I want to talk more about how you use human design and the nervous system regulation within your work. But I'm really curious when someone comes to you, like obviously your website is going to give people the information so they can help to choose whether they work with you or not compared to someone else. But if they're, say they're stuck in their business, they feel burnt out, they want to rediscover their passion for what they're doing, how is it received? Because it's quite unusual, right? Because, so much of the stuff that we see around business mentoring is about making money and you're going to get this 10K a month. Yeah, all of that stuff. And you need to, do your funnel and la di la di la la, all the things. This is really different.
Uh-huh.
So have they gone through all of those processes and been like, I need something different? Or are they just like, did they just happen upon you and
Okay. Well, yeah. So probably a bit of all of the above. It would be unusual for people to happen upon me, though.
mm,
I've usually heard of me from somebody else. I wouldn't be a natural go-to. People don't kind of go, "Oh my goodness, I'd love to do a deep dive into my psyche and what's going on in my business and how to clean it all up." It's not a natural go-to, but yes, you are correct. Often it is because people have been through a number of different iterations that aren't working. Sometimes those iterations aren't necessarily to do with their business. It could be that they've worked in corporate and they just have to get out, and they've always wanted to run a business, but they don't know what, who, where, when. Or it can be that they've done things in their business and some things have worked and some things haven't. And it's just that ongoing frustration and they just need to unpack it and repack it. Um, I suppose the other reference I would make is all of that stuff, let's just call it stuff, related to, oh, this funnel, that funnel, and 10K. And that's all part of the pushing and the old paradigm.
mhm.
And and I know with our human design, we've moved out and are moving away from cross-up planning. That was very much cross-up planning. And and also it was really very much how people made money. There was more people making money from selling how to make money than there were from the people actually making money because they were making money. It's the old story of, oh, well, if you can't get coaching work, why don't you become a coach who trains coaches? So other machine. So in the cross of planning, there's a number of machines operating in the economic system and self-perpetuating machines, whether that is the food industry, and then the marketing industry and the building industry, etc., etc. So, so yes, how do people come to me? Usually they would know of me, have heard of me in some shape or form, whether it's on a podcast or whether it is someone else who's worked with me or otherwise. Um, it would be rare for anyone to book something cold on my website, even though my website does have a couple of options. And sometimes that does get clicked on. So I do have an introduction to human design and what your human design and business, your body graph and business. That is a very nice go-to for people. And then they get to flavor of me at the same time. So I have that one-off session. I have got a clarity coaching one-off session. Those things do get clicked on, but it's really the programs is where we do the deep dive. So I have aligning you and aligning your business as my programs. Um, and they're done on a one-to-one basis. It's a container, a creator safe container. So, and I'm trying to remember your question specifically. Yeah, so what happens is people would book a call, an alignment call, because I have an option for an alignment call. And then we talk about where they're at and where I'm at and if there's a fit. And I have actually been known a couple of times to gently say to somebody, I think maybe you'd work well with somebody
Mm.
else because I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And that is perfectly okay. And that's been part of my journey is learning that that is really important. We are energetic beings and we can have connections with each other. And when that connection is right, oh my goodness, the work we can get through. But it's actually when the energy isn't quite right, and it's not about it being right or wrong in that sense, and it is without judgment, it's that we're not necessarily the right fit. So it's really also it's understanding. It's about the mechanics.
Mm.
It's not so the nonsense of shoehorning into you must do this and you should do that and da 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 da. Oh Lord, that's just a lot of work that is draining and it really sucks the life out of our business. And when we are working in alignment, not only can we get a lot more fulfillment from our business, and we're working to our strengths, but there's so much ease in our body, and it really changes the relationship we have with our business, and it changes the relationships we have in life because, as I mentioned earlier, how we behave in our business seeps into our lives. So it is you and your business very much. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I think so.
Well,
Okay, human design. Let's talk about that. I'd love to hear because you've been, oh, what did we say? Following, using, uh, living in alignment with. I don't know. You've known about human design for quite a long time, haven't you?
quite a long time.
Can you
Uh,
tell us how you kind of came about using it, understanding it, and how it's gradually evolved for you as you being in alignment? And then we'll talk about how you use it with your clients.
so I've talked a lot about alignment, and I would just sort of say, I wouldn't be so sure that I'm in alignment with human. I am doing my best, or I'm on the journey rather than doing my best, because I actually think it's about less trying. It's about us kind of being. So just in terms of I'm an alignment coach and I work with people in aligning themselves, but it is an ongoing process. Um, so I can't tell you exactly when I first met human design, around 2010, somewhere around there. Might have been 2009, might have been 2011, but it was in that territory. And interestingly enough, it was a woman who is also in the community who is that introduced me, our human design community that introduced me to human design, Susie Miller. And and I was curious about it when she introduced me to it. And it was basically I'd given her a spin home to her home. I was visiting. I was no longer living in Dingle at that point, but I was visiting there, and I had met Susie in town and I brought her home. And then we got talking, and she did a basic chart for me and told me about human design. And I was going, wow. And I kept that chart. And I showed that chart to her only about 6 months ago. And we had a real giggle over it because I met her in person again for the first time in a very long time. Because Susie is still living in Dingle. I'm now living in Kenmare, which is also in Kerry, 120 kilometres away. Um, but coming back to my introduction to human design, I think the interesting thing is when I showed the chart to Susie and we were talking about it, and she had some written notes beside it. And I'm a 4-6, so sixth line role model. I also have the 8-1 channel role model, and I had the notes that she wrote beside role model on this chart. And at the time, I was kind of going, really? Don't get it. What? I don't know what that's all about, Susie. Seriously? Role model? And yet at the same time, there was an undercurrent of recognition. But I would have said that recognition and acknowledgement that I could own it was related really to me being a mother and a role model as a mum and role model in subtle ways in my family and friendship circles. And yes, in very, very subtle ways in my business. I am now, all these years later, and I will be 62 at the end of this year. So I'm very much in my third phase, which is how it works with the sixth line. And I totally get it. Finally, I get it. Finally, I can own it. I can wear that mantle and go, oh, role model sounds quite facetious and kind of like a little bit arrogant if you take it in a particular way. But it's about a role model for the correct people. That it's not. I it's not about everyone. It's not about it being something. It's just being in my correct energetic alignment and me being how I need to be, and that giving permission for others to be how they need to be. And really, it's that ripple impact of it just goes on then. And it's about us really being ourselves and self acceptance and self belief. So, so in terms of when I met human design versus where I am now, there's been a huge journey. And for a number of years, I hung around the edges. From that first conversation, always curious. But I really didn't get it. And I was a single parent, and children were probably teenagers, and there would have been a lot going on. I could give you 100 excuses as to why I didn't investigate more, but ultimately it's all about timing. But I always took on different bits of it as I learned bits and pieces of it. I kind of would experiment with those. And the more and more I did that, the more and more I was kind of going, oh, there's something really cool here. And my daughter Roisin loved human design. So that was something then that we shared together. So then that really was something, and I would have introduced her to human design as a cross of contagion. So I've introduced quite a few people to human design and the nervous system work. And so that was pretty cool. That was something that I shared with Roisin. And then a very good friend of mine, Lucy, I introduced her to human design. She loved it. And so then that was something we shared. And I have other friends that we share. So it expanded out. And the more it expanded out, the more I got involved in it. And the turning point really was joining Kim's community, where then I started to engage with it on a daily level, and where it really started to become very much part of my life. And I could see the benefits of it more and more. And it's really a very recent thing for me to start really weaving it into my business. And that too happened naturally. Over the last couple of years, I've been talking to clients about it and doing a kind of I suppose, a light overview. Whereas now I still do, it's an overview, but really connecting their profile, their energetic blueprint with their strengths and how it shows up in their business. So using it as another map to give us guidance. And it has, oh my goodness, it's been a game changer. It's like it's the combination of all of the years of expertise that I have, and then the nervous system work and the human design. It's quite potent. So, did I answer the question?
Yes. Uh, um, do you know, I'm being really quiet and like not humming and hawing or agreeing or anything because I think that that's what's happening with our sound is when I make a noise, it kind of it delays what you're saying. So I'm I'm being really quiet. So
Ah,
well, not because I want to interrupt or anything, but I've just noticed that that's happening. And your sound's perfect when I keep my mouth shut. So
well, keep my mouth shut and let you do some talking.
I'm really curious when with your own human design, what are some of the most prominent players for you? Does it change?
Okay, so yeah, I would say, even as I mentioned already, my profile being a 4-6, because the 4 being the networker, and and then of course the 6 being the role model, but the 6, that profile, my first 30 years, and I can totally see it, trial and error. Oh my goodness, trial and error, for sure. And again, that's kind of like just a general 30 years, but it kind of it in or around, because I think the energy moves in beforehand and it hangs around for quite a long time. And then the next 30 odd years really being where I would have been really learning very much what happened there, what's been going on, and gathering, a lot of gathering. And that has, I totally see that. That would be the time in my life when I would have done a lot of learning. I've done family constellation facilitation. I've done, the personal development and communication and all of that type of work, as well as business training, as well as business coaching. And so in the human design, it's now me being in my third phase where it's like, okay, I can bring it out to the world. That's so obvious to me now. And it's not even about bringing it to the world, it's just bringing it to the right people. But it's also because it's the only way I can operate now. So that's the interesting thing, that since I've really got into the human design at the level I have, it just is so much part of my skin. So in terms of my profile, in terms of I have the 8-1 role model channel, but the gate 8 is all about belonging and connection. And I've always been about belonging and connection. So I'm a really powerful people person. It's like people are the things that like, that's always been my thing. Um, but I'm only fully recognizing it now. This is part of what I do. It's kind of like I'm helping people to understand and make sense of their own journey, because I have the gate of shocks and I have gate 21, and the gate of shocks have really played out a lot in my own life. But how it plays out for my clients in terms of the value of that is I can help them make sense of their own shocks in their life. And what I do is I help them reframe a lot of their experiences and literally weave them together so they're understanding, oh, that's the gift in that. And that's the value of that. And that's the learning. Because the learning is where the juice is. We often leave that on the cutting room floor, quite frankly, because conditioning has us moving on, moving on, moving on. So in terms of, for me, also I have the 4426, really important, gauge of the transmitter. I also have 59.6. So it is my channels, the 59.6. So that's all about intimacy, connection. It's all about marketing. So it's kind of, so for me, my design is very much in a way where I'm here to support the other, to help them make sense of their experiences, their work, and how to tweak it and orientate it where it's bringing them a lot more abundance financially, mentally, emotionally, and it's really it's I'm decluttering their business with them using all of my toolkit. Um, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool seeing how my design does that. And actually, so my own journey into my design has shown me that more and more. My son is in gate 14, which is all about skills and talents and helping people to see their own skills and talents in a different way. And of course the sun, the personality sun, that's super important when it comes to our purpose and on what we're here to do. And so it's also me being able to use their energetic blueprint to support us in our journey of unpacking who they are and their direction.
Wow. It's pretty amazing. And it must be quite a process for, for your clients.
It,
You got to be ready for that stuff.
huh? Oh yeah. Oh, I'm a deep dive kind of gal. Oh yes. And so going back to a little bit of what you kind of asked almost earlier, or some of what you asked, but answering it in a different way. Um, I'm also sure. So one of the things that I was told early on was let the people come to you,
Mm.
and I can see that. And it is to do with my environment. And actually, when I was moving to Kenmare, very much the environment was a huge part of my decision making process, um, and making sure I was near shores. But there is that side of it as well. Let people come to you. I'm starting to really get that. I have been getting it for a long time, but of course the old conditioning of do I have work coming up, but I've got a whole other relationship with that now. But in terms of people being ready, the people that show up are ready.
Mm.
And also I'm very I'm very intuitive and I'm very attuned. So I know what is enough. So I also do kind of deals, if you like, with my client. I kind of go, okay, so let's do this much. Then I want you to go in, integrate that, and stay connected with me.
Mm.
And when 3 month break or 3 month break, then come back. So it isn't it's not a something you come in and it's like, do you go down the rabbit hole with Jackie and you're still there a year later. No. And also I have I've tweaked the process. I've got quite a process now. So I can bring people on a journey that is quite deep and but it's not too much. And they are, and that's been kind of cool to see that evolving and emerging. And I've only been able to really own that recently when I've been redoing my website. And of course, redoing your website challenges you to go into the depths of this, that, and the other. And I was really kind of quite fascinated. I was going, oh, I'm actually quite efficient at doing this now in terms of time and how I do it, but also in terms of, I mean, time frame. because I'm very much let's allow space and time, because when we allow space and time, we actually get through a lot more, interestingly enough. But I'm pretty good at bringing the client on a journey in a way that is correct for them. And so, yes, it's not everyone. In fact, that's the whole point of good branding. Good branding is to repel those that are not ready or want it and attract those that do and are ready. So, yeah, yeah.
Cool. It's very cool. Um, we're getting close to the end of our hour, and I'm very conscious that you have got a big day ahead of you. And so I don't want to hold you up for longer than our agreed time. I love everything about what you do, and I can only say, as a testament to the work you do. I mean, you can tell when you're here talking about it. It makes you want to. It makes you want to do it, right? But you've been supporting some of us in the human design community that we're in, and yeah, it's definitely a very nourishing process. But also, like it's like you got to face up to a few things, also, right? And get your shit together if you want these things to happen. But you do it in a way, and you support other people to do it in a way that is aligned for them. So it's not just like you telling them what they need out of their business, but helping them find what they need out of their business and about finding out who they are, really. I'm rambling.
Oh,
Sorry, I lost you there.
apologies. If I could just come in on something you said there, I agree with you. You're not rambling. It's I do that where we uncover a lot of things that they already know. What I say to my clients is, I am not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but you may not know that you know it until I say it. And what we're doing is gathering all of that and reframing it and rewiring what needs to be rewired. There but we do it in a way that is very manageable, and I walk alongside them. So whilst I'm not your typical coach that's just kind of going, well, I'll let you go round and round the houses until you come to the conclusion. It's like, yes, I will have the inquiry and I will support you to recognize and come to the conclusions. And if you're not getting it, I'll kind of go, okay, what about this over here? And what about this over here? And remember that pattern that we have? And remember, and they'll go, oh, holy God. So I make it unmissable. But I walk alongside them as they're doing the tweaking and the reorientating. That's part of our deal. I'm not, I'm kind of, I am somebody, when I say that, I mean that actually they know they can reach out to me outside of sessions. Because really, how it works for me is if I'm working with a client for a 3 month period, we're in a container together for that time, energetically. And I consciously create that container and I create a safe space for both of us. And during that time, we're doing the work, but also there's an energetic shift that's happening in the field. And that's pretty important. And that's because, so alongside human design, alongside nervous system work, and all of my years of experience, I am very spiritual. And I absolutely recognize the higher consciousness and the energetic field. And I've had so many examples of that in my life where things are hanging out in the energetic field, ready to come in. So by the time people come to me, they're usually ready to draw in what is already in their energetic field. I'm part of, I'm, if you like, I don't know, the channel, the piece, the what the pawn, and if we go to chess, maybe the queen, who actually forced them to bring it in, to draw it in. And I see how so much it was already out in my own energetic field, and it's over the years I drew it in. And I think that's quite important, that it's kind of like it's time, it's about timing.
Mm. I love that. And I love that you mentioned earlier about the shift that's happening with, you mentioned the cross of planning, which for those of you who don't know human design, check out incarnation crosses. You'll be able to find a description online of what the cross of planning means. What are we in now, and how has that created the shift?
So
Sleeping Phoenix?
we are in the sleeping Phoenix,
Mm,
I think it's the cross of mutation.
mm,
So if everything is mutating, I mean, it's a very good question. I would like to promise that I'm getting it correct for sure. But things are mutating, and we're really it's about the new our new human form coming in, but a higher consciousness, and that's where we're going. We are going towards more higher consciousness, and that's partly why we're experiencing so much falling apart right now, because we're in that transition, and things need to fall away in order for new things to be birthed.
mm.
Yes. Um, if we ring Kim there now, she'll tell us.
And I think that when it comes to the work that you do, if there are people who are feeling that shift and they want to they want to do things differently, we don't know what it looks like, but people like you are creating that newer way of working with people. It's not anything that someone may have done before. Would you agree with that?
I would say there are plenty of people who are doing work that is much more innovative and
Mm,
creative. We're going to see more and more of that as these years go by. Um, I find it interesting because I don't think of myself as particularly unusual, but that's because I've been living with myself for so long. Not, but I recognize that it's not the norm completely. I recognize that it's not mainstream. And I fully recognize that it will be particular people who are drawn towards me. Um, Usually it's people who are somewhere on in some way on the alternative side of things, whether they're a therapist or even if they aren't anything to do with alternative health or well-being, but they are that way inclined themselves in their own psyche, and they're trying to join up what they do with their own leaning. Um, but I suppose because I've lived in this world so much, I don't see it as being, I find the other more unusual now, if that makes sense.
yep.
Oh my goodness, how did I ever survive in that deeply conditioned paradigm and way of operating where it was so linear?
Mm.
And I believe more and more of it coming through. But I don't see myself as particularly unusual, even though I do know that there is a uniqueness there. Absolutely. I'll claim that, own it.
Love it.
That's my design.
Final piece, purpose.
Hmm.
Can you share with us your purpose?
Okay, so my purpose, and I will read out my purpose because I have only recently done my new website, and so I have my purpose on it. So my purpose is facilitating connection, belonging, and healing through business, unveiling the value and worth of an integrated approach to business, moving away from conditioned shoulds to allow inclusion of all aspects of ourselves, the body, energetic blueprint, which is HD, human design, emotional, spiritual, and mental. So it's all the parts of us. It's really about being ourselves and living in our full authenticity in all aspects of our lives, not just when we're on the yoga mat or not just when we're in a particular way. We are conditioned into compartmentalizing our lives. And my work is about let's move towards integration and
Amazing.
ease.
Amazing. Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been, yeah, wonderful, and I just love what you're doing. So, yeah, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Australia.
Australia, mate.
So then we'll go back to Ireland's busy day ahead over this side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Take care.
you. Take care.